Imagine it's the early 1600s in Europe. Castles dot the landscape. Armies are on the march, and the entire economy runs on silver coins. These aren't just pieces of metal. They are a promise, a store of value trusted because of their weight, not because of a government decree. Now imagine those coins slowly shrinking, not by accident but by design. Between 1619 and 1623, the Holy Roman Empire experienced one of the earliest documented cases of runaway inflation in European history. It was called the Kipper and Wipper Crisis, a strange and fascinating age when rulers financed war not through taxes or growth, but by quietly destroying their own money. This wasn't modern hyperinflation with printing presses and paper notes. This was inflation born from scissors, melting pots, and sheer greed. To understand this, you have to picture the Holy Roman Empire. It wasn't a unified country like modern Germany or France. It was a messy patchwork of over 300 semi-independent territories, bishoprics, free cities, and principalities. Each had its own ruler, its own laws, and often its own currency. Then in 1680, Europe plunged into the 30 Years' War, a brutal and devastating conflict that would consume armies, treasuries, and entire populations for a generation. War is expensive. Soldiers need to be paid, weapons and supplies have to be purchased, and mercenaries demand payment in hard currency, real silver. But the rulers of these small states had a problem. Their tax systems were weak, centralized finance didn't exist, and the supply of silver was limited. Faced with these impossible constraints, many of them turned to a dangerous and deceptive shortcut: currency debasement. So what do these strange words, Kipper and Wipper, actually mean? They came from German slang of the time. A Kipper was someone who would sort through coins, picking out the heavier ones with a higher silver content. A Wipper referred to the tilting or seesawing motion of a balance scale, often used to cheat during weighing. Together, they described a system of financial deception that swept across the empire. Here's how it worked. Money changers, mint officials, and even the rulers themselves began to systematically separate the good coins from the bad. The coins with high silver content, the good money, were hoarded, melted down, or sold abroad for a premium. Then, they took that pure silver, mixed it with cheap base metals like copper, and minted a huge number of new coins that looked similar, but were, in reality, almost worthless. These inferior coins were then forced back into circulation. This entire chaotic period became known as the Kipper und Wipperzeit, the age of cheated money. The rulers used two main techniques to pull this off. The first was coin clipping. This was literally just shaving tiny amounts of silver from the edges of existing coins. Over thousands of coins, those little shavings added up to a lot of silver. The second, more destructive method was debasement. They would melt down a batch of perfectly good silver coins and remint them with a lot less silver and a lot more copper. So, a coin that was once 90% silver might be reissued containing only 30%, or even just 10% silver. But here's the crucial part. By law, it still had the same face value. The result was entirely predictable. The total number of coins in circulation exploded, but the real value of that money collapsed. As people realized the coins in their pockets contained less and less real silver, prices for everyday goods began to skyrocket. People demanded more of the worthless coins to part with their bread, their meat, or their firewood. Trust in the currency, the very foundation of the economy, completely eroded. Inflation began to accelerate, and this wasn't just some abstract economic theory. This was a daily struggle for survival. The Kipper und Wipper crisis is one of history's clearest and most dramatic examples of something called Gresham's law. The law simply states, bad money drives out good. Think about it. If you have two types of coins and the government says they're both worth the same, but, one is mostly silver and the other is mostly copper, which one are you going to spend? You'll spend the bad copper coin, of course. And you'll hoard the good silver one, hide it, melt it down, or save it for a rainy day. That's exactly what happened across the Holy Roman Empire. High silver coins vanished from the markets almost overnight. People buried them in their gardens, hid them under floorboards, or sent them abroad to places where their silver content was still respected. Soon, only the debased copper-filled coins remained in everyday circulation. The markets were flooded with bad money, and public confidence completely collapsed. For ordinary people, this inflation was a catastrophe. Imagine your life savings, held in silver coins, suddenly becoming worthless. Prices for essentials doubled, then tripled, sometimes in a matter of weeks. Your wages, if you even got them, couldn't keep up. Farmers started refusing to sell their crops for worthless coins, leading to food shortages in the cities. Workers demanded payment in something real, like foreign currency or even just chunks of silver bullion. Trade ground to a halt. Why would a merchant accept a cart full of debased coins when they knew those same coins would be worth even less tomorrow? In some parts of the empire, the economy went backwards in time. Barter returned. People started trading goods directly for other goods because money had lost its purpose. Entire towns and regions had to revert to purely local trade networks. Contemporary chronicles describe absolute chaos. They wrote of markets where prices changed by the hour and where coins were no longer counted but weighed, as nobody trusted their face value. Money had simply ceased to function. But as with any crisis, not everyone lost. In fact, a new class of speculators and crisis profiteers thrived. The money changers, the mint masters, and those close to the rulers made a fortune. They hoarded the good coins when they were cheap and sold them for huge profits. They exploited the wild price differences between different territories, buying goods in one place with worthless coins and selling them in another for sound money. These early financial operators understood something crucial that is still true today. Inflation is a massive, hidden transfer of wealth. Those closest to the creation of new money benefit the most, while those at the bottom, who have to live on fixed wages or small savings, suffer the most. As the inflation spiraled completely out of control, the same rulers who had caused the problem began to panic. They responded with desperation, imposing harsh and ultimately useless measures. They tried price controls, forcing merchants to sell goods at a fixed price, which only led to empty shelves. They passed legal tender laws, making it a crime to refuse the debased currency. Some states even threatened execution for coin clipping or currency manipulation. But these laws couldn't fix the fundamental problem. The problem wasn't enforcement. It was credibility. The people knew the coins were bad, and no government decree could change that physical reality. By 1623, the entire system had reached its breaking point. Trade had stalled. Tax revenues, collected in worthless money, had collapsed, meaning rulers couldn't even pay their own soldiers. Armies went unpaid, leading to mutinies and further chaos. It was a disaster. Eventually, several of the larger, more stable states had no choice but to abandon the debased coinage entirely. They led a currency reform, introducing new coins with a guaranteed, fixed silver content backed by much stricter minting standards. Slowly, very slowly, confidence began to return. But the damage was done. The savings of an entire generation were destroyed. The crisis fueled social unrest and intensified the economic inequality that was already tearing society apart. The Kipper and Wipper crisis eventually ended, but its painful lessons endured. Now, you might be thinking this is a fascinating but obscure piece of history. What does a 400-year-old crisis about silver coins have to do with us today? The reason this episode matters is that while the technology has changed, the human behavior and economic principles have not. The core mechanisms of the Kipper and Wipper crisis are the same ones we see in every major inflation in history. You have governments financing massive spending by secretly weakening the currency. You have inflation acting as a hidden tax, silently stealing purchasing power from citizens. And most importantly, you have the realization that trust is the absolute foundation of any monetary system. The technology has changed from coin clipping to digital money printing, but the psychology is identical. From the Weimar Republic in Germany to modern hyperinflation crises around the world, the Kipper and Wipper period reminds us that money is, at its heart, a social contract. And once that contract is broken, restoring it is a long and painful process. In the end, the Holy Roman Empire wasn't just weakened by foreign invasion and religious war. It was weakened from within, because its leaders destroyed the credibility of their own money. The Kipper and Wipper crisis stands as one of history's earliest and clearest warnings. You can clip coins. You can dilute silver or you can print trillions of paper notes. But you cannot cheat the laws of economics forever. When trust disappears, inflation is what follows. And when inflation spirals out of control, societies and even empires begin to weaken. This was the story of the empire of clipped coins, a forgotten crisis that still echoes in our world today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this piece of hidden history interesting, please hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. See you next time.